Great. Okay, we're doing life cycles number 2, and it's all about bar and bat mitzvah. Okay, who knows what the word bar means?
Son.
Son of, right, very good. What language is it, do you know?
Hebrew.
No, it's Aramaic.
Aramaic.
So bar is son of, and bat is daughter of. And what's a mitzvah?
Is also Aramaic?
No, bat is actually Hebrew, but I do believe that they say bat in Aramaic too. That's why they're using that. And mitzvah is what? Actually, mitzvah is also Aramaic.
Wow.
Everybody thinks that mitzvah comes from the word tzivah, to command. But mitzvah actually in Aramaic is from the word safta v'chibur, connection. So what's a mitzvah? A mitzvah is a commandment of God that you use to connect to God in a level that's not according to your understanding. It's just the level that God wants. Nothing to do with us. When we do a mitzvah, what happens? It gives us a connection to God. So, mitzvah started. When did the idea of bar and bat mitzvah start? Many, many, many years ago. It goes back to the time of Abraham and Isaac, his son. So it says when Isaac was born, remember that he was born to Abraham when he was how old? 100. That was close, but 100 is better. And how old was Sarah?
Like 90?
90. Sarah was 90. So when it says later on, it says Vayigdal Hayela, the boy grew up, and Vayigma Vayas Avraham Mishta. Avraham made for him a Mishta, a party. According to Rashi, he says it's at 24 months, but according to Medrash, it was bar mitzvah. So when he grew up, this was the time when he was 13, and at 13, he gets a certain responsibility. We're going to talk about what that means. Then also, we see when Yitzchak had 2 sons. Do you remember who the 2 sons of Yitzchak were?
Ishmael and Yaakov.
No, Yaakov and Esav, right. So Esav and Yaakov, it says, Vayigdalu Hana'arim. And the boys grew up. At that moment, we understood who they were, their personalities at that point. Because until a boy is 13 or a girl is 12, we don't really get their personalities yet. All of a sudden, then we see, because they turn like teenagers. You know, teenagers, all of a sudden, they start talking back to you and telling you things. Why? What's going on here? Because it says, Vayigdal, Yigdalu, Hana'arim, and then it says, Esav was Ish Yodea Tzayid. He knew how to use a bow and arrow, and he was a person that would go out into the field. And what about Yaakov? What did Yaakov do? He was Ish Tam. He stayed in the house. He was very straight, a straight kind of a child, very a person that would sit at home and he would study all day. So he wasn't the kind of wild guy like Esav was. So at that point you start to see what this child is about. And it says that God shortened Abraham's years by 2 years because he didn't want Abraham to see Esav acting the way he's acting. So when Abraham passed away, Esav and Yaakov were 13 years old at this time. Because at that time, then people start showing who their real personality is. So we understand that for a boy, it's 13, and for a girl, it is 12. Why at that point? Because if we know that they become mature physically at that time, if you know their reproductive organs start working at that time, a girl at 12 and a boy at 13, it's possible for them to get married. Doesn't mean that they will, because they're still too young, but they have already, their reproductive organs are actually working. Usually the girl will get her period at that time, or earlier nowadays, and the boy would be more, start becoming hormonal and start screaming and yelling too, just like the girl. Even though we always say the girls do that, but the boys also get their moments too. Interesting. So now, celebrating a bar and bat mitzvah, we know how to celebrate that. We'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to tell you one thing, that at my bat mitzvah, I still remember when I was 12 years old, you would think, like, what is my mother going to do for it? So remember, we used to go up to the Catskill Mountains, which I think a lot of Jews did in those days, and we went to this bungalow colony. It would be a bunch of bungalows, and people would be there. And my birthday happened to be at the end of the summer. My English birthday is September 11th, but my Hebrew birthday is the 12th of Elul. Sometimes the 12th of Elul is during the summer still. It's still earlier. It comes out earlier. That year it came out earlier, and we were still up in the bungalow colonies. My mother took all the girls and the whole bungalow colony, and she taught them Israeli folk dances. Mm-hmm. That was my bat mitzvah. Just a very interesting take on it. And for a bar mitzvah, I still remember when my brother, not my older brother, but my second brother, when he had his bar mitzvah, I still recall going into the Rebbe, because at that time the Lubavitcher Rebbe still took audiences. So we went in for my brother's bar mitzvah. The whole family went in together, and I still remember standing. The Rebbe was sitting at a desk, and we were standing around, and the Rebbe asked some questions of my brother. What did you learn? Stuff like that. And then each of us went up to the Rebbe and got $1. That was like the whole yechidus there for the bar mitzvah. And it's interesting to note that after that, actually, that time the Rebbe didn't take private audiences anymore. He would only do groups. So if you were a bar mitzvah, he would come out, and there would be like 10, 15 families at the same time, all the bar mitzvahs of that month. And the Rebbe would give a blessing, and then he would give out dollars or whatever it was at that time. But this is my last, actually my most vivid memory of the Rebbe, going into the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Anyhow, so going to this process of mitzvot. So we said for a boy that means he puts on tefillin, and he gets called to the Torah. And what does it mean for a girl? What kind of mitzvahs does a girl have? Anybody? Mikvah, right? What else? Lighting candles. And what else? And baking challah. So those are the three main mitzvahs. And what does it spell out? It spells out your name. Chana. Challah, Nida, and Adlakas Haneros. The name Chana. Anyhow, so I always find that that's beautiful. Because what's the idea of challah? Challah means you take a little piece of dough when you bake the challah, and you make a special blessing. And this is a special mitzvah for a woman. The second mitzvah is the mitzvah of Taharat HaMishpacha, which is the family purity laws. The women and men, right? And at the end of the woman's cycle, she goes to the mikvah, and then she can resume relations with her husband. That's the mikvah part. And then we have Adlakat HaNerot every Friday night. A woman has a special mitzvah that she lights the Shabbos candles. Now with her mitzvah, every one of those mitzvahs, you have a time that you can pray to God at that moment. That moment is the most special moment for you. Because when you are taking a piece of challah, you say, I want to pray for whoever you want to pray for at that moment. And if someone needs a shidduch, or somebody needs health or wealth or whatever it is, whatever they need, somebody's sick, you can pray for the person by taking a piece of challah when you make the bracha. Also, when a person goes to the mikvah, they can also pray at that moment. The moment you go into the mikvah, you also pray. And also, when you light the Shabbos candles, you also can stand there as you light the candles Friday night, and that is your time with God too. So it's interesting that these are three mitzvahs of a woman, but they're probably the most powerful mitzvahs because we connect to those mitzvahs by helping others. We help ourselves that way. By praying for other people, it says that in the Torah that if you pray for somebody else, God will answer you first. So this is a very important thing. And think about those three mitzvahs of a woman. The challah is connected to what? Kosher. Right? It's connected to kashrut. That's a very important mitzvah. Nida is in itself an important mitzvah, and Adlakas Haneros, lighting Shabbos candles, is connected to which mitzvah?
Praying.
Most important mitzvah. One of the most important mitzvahs, Shabbat.
Shabbat, of course.
So you have kashrut, nida, and Shabbat. With those three mitzvahs, those are mitzvahs that people will say, oh, that person's observant. When they see that person keeps those three mitzvahs, you say, oh, that's an observant person. They keep kashrut, they keep Shabbat, and they keep Taharat HaMishpacha. Without those three mitzvahs, you don't say that person's observant, right? You'll say, oh, they're not observant. They don't keep those three mitzvahs. Yeah.
I remember before we were talking about how women's mitzvahs are not time-bound.
Right.
But I feel like Nida and
Except for
those
three. Exactly. All you're right. It's not time-bound except for those three.
Okay.
Because those three make up the woman. This is very important to connect. Why? Because the woman, she is the basis of the home. And if she doesn't keep Shabbat and Kashrut and Nida, the whole household is not going to keep it. Mm-hmm. So this is where it starts with the home, the beginning of the home. Okay. So it doesn't mean that a man can't help in the home either. I'm not even saying that because that's not even the point. The point is that this is her mitzvah. She needs to take care of making sure that she does those three mitzvahs. So when we talk about a bat mitzvah, we're also talking about keeping those specific mitzvot, which is most important for women. And also, because I know when I do bat mitzvahs with girls, sometimes we'll do a challah baking ceremony. You know, we'll make the challah with the kids, and then we'll make the bracha. Or sometimes we'll do it arts and crafts. You make your own candle, stuff like that, so the girl feels a part of it. Another interesting way to celebrate a bat mitzvah is by having the girl say the most important prayer for women. Does anybody know Friday night, the most important prayer for women?
Adlakat Nor?
What?
Adlakat Nor?
No. Prayer for women, besides lighting the candles. What prayer do we say Friday night that's only connected to women?
It's men's talking.
The man say it, but it's connected to a woman. Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, right? So the woman of valor prayer tells about the woman, how important she is. So we come into Shabbat, the woman lights the candles, the man says the Kiddush, but before he says Kiddush, he has to make sure to acknowledge his wife. Acknowledge what an amazing woman she is. And this Eshet Chayil gives you an amazing idea of what the woman is about. So usually when we do bat mitzvah, for a boy, for bar mitzvah, you call the boy up to the Torah, or the second thing he does is he puts on tefillin. For a girl, she gets up and she says the Eshet Chayil, because she needs to understand that this is what connects her to the Jewish nation, that she is very special. And she needs to understand how special she is and how she is a woman of valor. Where do you find a woman like that? It's hard to find. And all the stanzas that you read in the Eshet Chayil is so connected to this woman that you have to emulate that and try to be like that type of woman. It's really beautiful. But we'll learn the Eshet Chayil another time because we're doing Bat Mitzvah this time.
And I like few words. One second.
Yeah.
That is nothing beauty. Is nothing.
Sheker hachein vehevel hayofi.
Yeah.
Is falsehood is the chen is grace.
Yeah.
And nothing is beauty.
Nothing is beauty.
What's the most important thing?
The soul.
The woman has Yirat Hashem.
Yeah.
And she has awe and respect for God.
Yeah.
In other words, her insides. Her insides, right. Only she deserves everything, right? Because she has, in other words, instead of thinking about the outside and the beauty of her outside, you need to understand how beautiful she is on the inside.
Yeah, I like this word.
All the rabbis look for beautiful women. Why?
Thank you. I hope they look for beauty, because beauty, sometimes when a person is beautiful on the outside, they're really beautiful on the inside.
Yeah, usually it should be like this.
Yeah, it should be. No, I'm saying, but also you should know that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder too. It's not just that way. You know, when somebody sees somebody, you can see their beauty just by looking at them. Even if maybe their eyes are not perfect, their nose is not perfect, but when you can see their inner beauty, when you understand them, then you can get them. It's just funny because
in my life that sometimes my friends and everything, when they come like they're arrogant and everything, it's beautiful, but so arrogant.
Well, arrogance is a problem. We're not talking about arrogance. That's what we're trying to say. Is that when a person is beautiful inside and out, that's the most beautiful thing.
Обманчива прелесть, обманчива и тщетна красота. Лишь женщина, боящаяся Господа, достойна похвал. Вот в этом.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's what she was saying. Yeah. Anyway, so going back to the process, so we and it's interesting that sometimes for bar mitzvah, they take the boys to the kotel, and I've seen pictures of the Svardim when they do their bar mitzvahs. They have these drums, and they walk the whole way, and they're playing the drums all the way, and singing and dancing. And I've actually seen it with girls too for bat mitzvah, which is very, very interesting. They like to do that so that people will look and be happy with them.
I like that.
Very loud music.
Yeah.
You like that?
And also, one other thing that people do is actually, when a boy is called to the Torah or a girl gets her bat mitzvah, we throw candies at them. Why? Because we want them to have a sweet life. So we also throw them candies.
What if you had a bat mitzvah, like how a boy has it, like reading the Torah and everything like that? Is that, like, infinitely bad?
It's not about being bad, but women and men have different obligations.
Yeah.
So if a woman is being bat mitzvah, she has to go according to her own obligations, not to be like a man. Let her be like her own self. Sure, there are people who...
to me.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with what happened to you because that's what you were taught, but it didn't give you the bat mitzvah. That wasn't your bat mitzvah. Your bat mitzvah was that you are now responsible for mitzvot, for all your mitzvot. It's not about the party, and it's not about being called to the Torah. It's more about what you need to do from now on. When you're 12 or 13, you need to do certain things. And that's your responsibility. When it becomes your responsibility, that's what you need to do. It's not about the beautiful party and not about the, getting called to the Torah, which some people think that's the most important part. No, it's not. It's only the beginning. It's not the end. Whereas in some places, they go to Hebrew school, they learn for bar bat mitzvah. What happens at the end?
That's it.
That's the end of their Judaism. It should be the beginning of their Judaism. Because before bar bat mitzvah, it's just an education. Right? I mean, it should be the beginning. So, in the special discourse that a boy says for his bar mitzvah, there is a place that says that the boy puts on the tefillin, and when a boy puts on tefillin, it's like God is putting on tefillin. What does it mean that God is putting on tefillin? I mean, how could God put on tefillin? He doesn't have a hand. He doesn't have a head. So when a boy puts on tefillin, he puts it on his head, he puts it on his head, and the whole idea is for him to remember to connect himself to God and to love God. It's the heart, it's against the heart, the hand is against the heart, the mind thinks about God, and the hand is supposed to love God. And so when we love God and we put on tefillin and we understand the significance behind tefillin, it becomes like a mirror. I'm doing it for God, and God does it in turn for us. So when we connect and do that mitzvah, God is doing that mitzvah too. He is turning around and loving everyone. And not just that, it affects not only yourself, but it affects the whole world. Because the whole world is really one. Now that we had such a terrible tragedy happening this week in Pittsburgh, which was really heart-wrenching, we understand that the Jewish people need to be more and more united. We have to do more mitzvot to bring more light into the world so that we can be a part of the whole world. It doesn't matter who you are. You're Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist, whatever you are, it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The most important point that every Jew should do more goodness and kindness in the world. And then we'll be able to be all as one. Because the more goodness and kindness we bring into the world, the more the world will become better and better and better. And this is the idea of doing a mitzvah. Doing a mitzvah is lighting up the world, not just for yourself. When you do something for someone else, you're not just helping the other person, but you're helping the whole world. It's like the ripple effect. Did you see that I saw that once on Facebook. There was a video of the ripple effect. Somebody did a favor for one person, and that person went and did a favor for a third, and then the third did for the fourth, and it went like a domino effect. So this is what it is in the spiritual world too, not just the physical world. When we do something beautiful and something nice and bring light into the world, the next person's going to do it too. And the next person's going to do it too. And this is how we can bring peace and harmony into the world. This would be completely a different world if we were able to do that. And so therefore, when a child is bar bat mitzvah, this is the time that he gets that responsibility to start what? He just had his Yetzer Hara all his life. His evil inclination. So little kids, they're wild. It's hard for them to like really do things calmly, and we have to keep teaching them. So when they turn 12 for a girl and 13 for a boy, they all of a sudden, they get their Yetzer Tov. They get their good inclination. So now there's a struggle. So not just they don't listen to the parents, but they're angry at their parents all the time. Why? And they start talking back at that age. Why? Because now they've gotten their Yetzer Tov, their good inclination. So there's a struggle going on within themselves. And they don't know what to do. So they're testing everybody all the time. They'll always start testing people. And this is the time that we have to make sure that we teach them and say, okay, we understand that there's a struggle. It's not easy to do what is right. But we just need to sit back and say, okay, let's teach them now, and we have to understand that this is the age, at 12 and 13, that their maturity is coming in. Their development physically, but it's also an emotional development at that point. And so therefore things are changing. And then also there is something that usually the Rebbe used to say for a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah. He used to say, you should be a chassid, you should be a yirat shamayim, and you should be a lamdin. What does that all mean? What's a chassid? A chassid from chesed, kindness, but in the Pirkei Avot it says that Ezehu chassid, who's the chassid? It's a person that goes lifnim mishunat sadin. He goes above everything, above and beyond. He doesn't think about it so much, he jumps. He jumps in the water. When there's an emergency, he's the first one jumping. That's a chassid. Then there's a yirat shamayim, which means a person that does the letter of the law. But what does that mean really? What does law mean? Law means to respect, to have respect for other people. What does that mean? You have a husband and a wife, and usually you know that a man needs respect, right? And the woman needs love, more love than respect. She needs respect too, but more love. It's very interesting because when we think about this idea of a husband and wife respect each other, then you have a very good marriage. If you get married and you don't respect your husband, nothing's going to go well. There's going to be fights and arguments all the time. Most important thing is respect. So that's why the Rebbe also said, Yirat Shamayim. That means respect. Respect of heaven. When you respect God, you respect everybody else around you too. Because why? Because we're all a part of God. So we respect other people, we respect God too. That's Yirat Shamayim. Then he says you should be a lamdim. A lamdim means a scholar. But a scholar you could have said Talmud Chacham. Why a lamdim? Why a person who learns? Because when you're talking about somebody who learns, you're actually talking about a lesson in learning. Not just to learn the Torah for the sake of the Torah, but to look at the Torah and find all its lessons. Because when you find the lessons in the Torah, then you could apply it to your everyday life. So that's why the Rebbe used Chassid, Yirat Shamayim, and Lamdin. He always said that to a bar mitzvah boy. Because those three things are all the components that make a child become a mensch. You know what a mensch is? Right?
Yeah.
Chilavek. Or, I guess in Russian you could say that, or a man, a real man, right?
Yeah.
Okay, also when we go to this idea of party, and we say, why does everybody make a party for the bar mitzvah? Isn't it enough that we're keeping the mitzvah? Why do we need a party? Because we still need to do something to make other people happy. It's not all about us only. So when we make this party, it's like saying, you see, my son or my daughter is starting to do mitzvot, and I want all of you to be happy with me. Not only I'm going to be happy, but we all should be happy together. Because the purpose, what's the purpose? For a child at that age to go from a private child to a public servant. At this time, now, this child is obligated to do what? To help others. Not to just be selfish. Before 12 and 13, you gave him everything. Gave him whatever he wanted, or whatever she wanted. After this age, now it's time for this child to give back to the community. He needs to become a public service, And now he needs to understand, what's my purpose in life? What do I need to do? It's interesting that in Tibet, they do a ceremony when the child is 13 years old. And guess what they give them for a present?
Candles?
Sounds interesting, but no. No candles.
Suitcase?
No? You'd be very shocked when I tell you.
Candy.
No candy. A present. What present do they give them? Now you are a man. What should I give a 13-year-old boy that he became a man in Tibet?
Knife.
A rifle. A rifle. That was close. You got close. A knife. Yeah, a rifle. So they give him what is it called? A machete?
Probably.
The one that the big rifles that they use?
What is this? I don't understand.
A big rifle. A gun.
Винтовка.
Yeah.
So in Tibet, that's what they do.
Винтовка,
Why?
винтовка.
Because their life's purpose is what?
Protect.
To protect
Protecting themselves. Yeah, protect. You can say kill, you can say protect. It depends on how you look at it. That's the whole argument of gun control, right? It's either we protect ourselves or we're killing people. So that's a very big question. Do we use the gun for protection, or are the killers going to get the guns? But my personal opinion, the killers can get the guns whenever they want anyway. So, but we need to protect ourselves.
So who doing this? Is the
In Tibet. I don't know how you say it.
В Тибете.
It's a place.
Это, знаете, горы между Китаем и Индией. Тибет.
Yeah, it's like Indian, China, and that area.
They do this,
Yeah. So I thought that was a very fascinating thing. So that's what they figure out. The life purpose of a child is to protect himself already. So this is the idea. That's why they do it at 13. So we need to understand that at 13, a boy is ready to protect himself or to find his purpose or what he has to do in his life. I didn't say give him a gun. Don't even dream. Okay. So in Pirkei Avot it says, what is more difficult? To do something when you are not commanded or to do something when you are commanded?
Are commanded.
Why?
It's like you're supposed to fight.
You need to fight it. Very good. There's a struggle. So when you do something that you are commanded to do, so that's why a boy or a girl over bar or bat mitzvah, they start to have the struggle at that point. And therefore, that's why when they get their commandments and they say, now it's time to do the commandments, right? Because now you have the responsibility that you need to do it. Now it's going to start being more difficult for you, and that's what happens. The struggle comes in. So when a person is commanded, it's much harder to do it. You have a harder time doing it. And the interesting thing is that's why they say the forefathers, what was the big deal? They wanted to do it by themselves, so it was easier for them. And for us, after we got the commandments, then we start to sin. Then the Jewish people start to do the golden calf, right? Right away it settles in, the responsibility, oh my goodness, now I need to really do these commandments. So the struggle sets in. So I guess we're going to do golden calf first day, That's what happens. So this is the struggle. So Eliyahu Kitav says that at 12 or 13, the good inclination begins the struggle. And Reb Shimshon Hurs, one time a woman came to him and she had a child that was 4 years old. She says, Rebbe, when should I start educating my child? What did he say? The answer?
It's too late.
It's too late. You're 4 years too late. Because you need to educate a child from the moment it's born. So don't wait until they're bar bat mitzvah and say, now I need to educate them. No, it's too late at that point. We got to start at a very young age.
How do you educate them when they're like babies?
They still can hear and understand what you're telling
On their
them.
level.
Okay.
When they inside the
No.
mother's-
Right. She's right. Exactly. So when a child is in the womb even, if you play certain music, they remember
They really
it.
react to that.
They react to that music later. Right. The minute they're born, whatever you talk to them and tell them, they remember. There's a whole theory on attachment. How the mother is attached to the child, that's how the child reacts later on. So if you can have a very strong attachment, healthy attachment to the child, then the child grows up and looks for healthy attachments. Or you can have an anxious attachment to a child, then the child is always anxious, and doesn't look for, to marry somebody, they're nervous all the time. So they have a hard time with finding somebody that they can be comforted with. There's all these different aspects of like how you act with the child. That's how the child is going to continue. That's what the Rebbe always said about animals, like pictures of animals in the room. So if you put pictures of kosher animals for the child to see, it will develop the attributes of those kosher animals, because usually kosher animals are not as wild. They're more calm. They're more peaceful animals. Okay. And so therefore the child picks up peace in the home. If you put beautiful, pictures of flowers in their room, they'll love nature, etc., etc. I mean, this is something that you need to know, that since they're even in the womb, they still can learn things.
Like also through what you read.
Right.
Okay.
Like I told you with Menucha, I read Tanya while I was pregnant with her because I was in bed for so long. So all I did was learn with her. So I can see the way she loves Tanya, actually, believe it or not. She doesn't like to learn everything, but Tanya, she just loves. I mean, she's so connected to it.
Like Sarah Leher, she was saying about Adasa, she was saying that when she was pregnant with her.
She also was doing it. Anyhow, so basically, it says Chanoch lenar al pi darko. If you educate the child according to their way, the way they learn best. So when they get older, they will be educated properly, because every kid learns in a different way. So we have to pay attention to the child and understand how this child learns. That's how we educate this child. Okay, so before we finish up, I wanted to just tell you a cute little story about this boy. Actually, I don't know if it's so cute. In a way, it's a little sad. But this boy, when he was born, everything was fine. He was okay. In about a year and a half, he started trembling. And they took him to the doctor. And in those days, they didn't know much about any kind of diseases. They told him, oh, he probably has a virus because he's trembling. And that virus never went away. And the kid grew up, and he's still trembling, and he's trembling, So he definitely had some sort of disease, or whatever it was. And as he got older, he was going to camps for special needs and going to schools for special needs. And when it came to his bar mitzvah, this rabbi got up, and he says, I want to tell you a story about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. When the chayalim, the soldiers, came to the Rebbe who were wounded, the Rebbe said that each person that has a disability, they're not disabled. They are mitzuyanim, means that they are extraordinary. Why? Because a person that's missing something, he finds a way to compensate in a different way so that he can live his life. So he says that they're special people. They're extraordinary people. Right. They're extraordinary. That's what he called them, extraordinary people. And so when he said that, the family was actually very happy to see that even though this boy had this problem, at least at his bar mitzvah, they understood that he's a special child and he'll grow up and he's not considered disabled, but he's considered extraordinary. And we do actually see a lot of stories of people that are disabled. Like, did you see there's a girl that doesn't have arms and she's able to play the piano with her toes.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I'm just saying what people can do, even if they were wounded and they can't walk, they actually, if they really wanted to walk, they would figure out a way to be able to walk. And there's all different ways that people in their head can figure ways to compensate for whatever problems they have. So we are all extraordinary people, and we have to affect the whole world. And this is our job as people, to make sure to bring light and goodness and kindness to this world forever.
Thank you.